We're ready to talk. We're ready to talk Utah, which is not a state I've covered all that much, but important stuff going on under the radar, I guess. But not Utah. There was some big fights that happened last year. This year again, they're trying to destroy public sector unions and people's right to amend the constitution there. So I'm joined with Shaquille Ledford, who is the recording secretary for AFSCME, their e-board there, and Jerry Philpott, who is the president of Local 1004. They are in the middle of a very important, time-sensitive operation, and so I appreciate them taking some time to talk to me about it. They've got like 9 days left to acquire a lot of signatures. I know you guys are doing well, but it's probably not so easy to do it in such a short time. So why don't we start with just the basics? The In Utah, there was a big kerfuffle over people, public sector workers. They tried to pass, the Supreme Court stopped them from doing, from not allowing them to bargain or organize. So tell me about exactly what's going on. Then we can talk about what you guys are then trying to fix.
Jerry, do you want to, or do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead and start. You want to start?
Yeah, basically, so the Utah's legislative session is 45 days every spring. In that 45 days this year, they passed a bill, HB 267, which prohibits public sector employee unions from collective bargaining. Their biggest argument was you can still have your union, they just can't do what a union's intended to do. I think a lot of us who are opposed to this bill do think it's a retaliatory act against the teachers union, the Utah Educators Association, because they are extremely organized and extremely effective at what they do, and they advocate for public schools. And in Utah, they really want to privatize education, and the first way that they're doing that is with vouchers. It's called a Utah Fits All scholarship. And those vouchers are great for really wealthy families that can already afford private school tuition, but not for working class families. It's just, it wouldn't cover enough tuition. And so they still have to send their kids to public schools, which are being defunded. So that's why we think this bill came about. Obviously, the bill sponsor would say that's not true at all. It's a way to safeguard taxpayer money. And the problem is it doesn't only affect the teachers' unions, it affects all public employees. So in Salt Lake City, the police and fire departments are both organized and have contracts, and municipal employees at Salt Lake City also have a contract, as well as other school employees associations that have contracts. So all of those are thrown into, I don't know what word I want to use, but they're all affected by that. And where I work at Salt Lake County, we don't have a contract, but we have what's called a meet and confer ordinance, which recognizes AFSCME and operating engineers, and there's another public employees association, but it recognizes those as bargaining agents. So the bill would also affect those ordinances, and we wouldn't be able to talk to the employers in that organized, effective way. So. And right now, we're trying to gather signatures for a referendum. We think Utah might have the most difficult referendum law process in the nation. We need to get 8% of the registered voters in 15 out of 29 state Senate districts, and we have to do it in 30 days. And opposition to our referendum process from like Americans for Prosperity and Utah Parents United, they have that same 30 days to try to convince people to remove their signatures.
Yeah.
And then they get an additional 45 days after we're done to try to contact people and ask them to remove their signatures. And the total that 8% in 15 Senate districts comes to is about 146,000. So we've been aiming for just over 200,000, which is insanely difficult. And you're not allowed to go in like public lobbies. You can be on parks, but that's always iffy. Like Jerry just got kicked out of a park not 2 days
Really?
ago, a public park. Yeah. And there's a
Wow.
lot of businesses that are supportive and let us be out in front of their doors, and a lot that don't. And yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot.
It's really interesting the way that, Utah, I think, was seen as like, always a very, Republican state, but a little more moderate in a lot of ways, right? It was the state that didn't go too hard for Trump, right? Both in a number of elections. And then really been over the last few years that there's been this effort to try and, amend the Constitution, I guess gerrymander more, just really trying to do a lot of stuff that I imagine the teachers union has been standing up against. And like you said, this is revenge, but it's interesting to see that kind of switch has gone to the MAGA right, I guess, after resisting for a long time.
One thing I will say is this bill specifically, I mean, the education bills are a completely different conversation, but this bill specifically about collective bargaining was really close in both the state house and state senate. We have 75 members in the state house and we lost by 10 votes, and 29 state senators and we lost by 2 votes. So,
Right.
yeah, there was widespread bipartisan like outcry against this bill, and the governor, waxed poetic about how he hated this and he wished it hadn't come to this. But then he signed it on Valentine's Day, which was a 3-day weekend, so it didn't get picked up in the news cycle.
And they sent it to the most unfriendly Senate hearing
Yeah.
committee to try to get it through that they could put it in, and it's still the head of that committee had to be the tie breaking vote to get it through. We actually we filled the room and 3 overflow rooms, and we filled the hallway with
Uh,
people, and they had 3 people speak on behalf of that bill. And they had to limit us to I think we had like 20 something speak against it, and they had to limit us to like a minute and a half each because there were so many people wanting to speak against it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's I know that they wanted to they like you said, like, they wanted to gerrymander, they were doing this voucher stuff. Like, what was the impetus, do you think, now, like, do this? I mean, there's been attacks elsewhere, right, for the last decade or so in public unions, but was there like a is there like a big contract coming up? Is there a thing that they were trying to, or is it just like, here's the opportunity to do it?
I think it had to do with the teachers union, but I also think that Utah is like a try it out state for conservative legislation. And like this wasn't written, nobody in the state of Utah, no employer that was negotiating a contract asked for this. This came out of state, Americans for Prosperity. I know that this legislator did not write this. Somebody gave him this legislation. So I think part of it was just like, let's see what we can do in conservative Utah. And I mean, it did pass, and there are a lot of people who support it, but there is bipartisan outrage against it. So I'm really hopeful. Utah, has this phrase, the Utah way, where we pat ourselves on the back for like not getting mired down in partisan divide. And okay, but I really hope that like this we can get this referendum on the ballot, and then we'll launch into the campaign. But it would be amazing, and I think really show people that Utah is a little different, despite how much like the rest of the
Yeah.
conservative states we might be.
We got into the weeds a little bit there. They tried to have a compromise, right? There was this effort to maybe make the bill not as bad, just like really arduous for unions, instead of just banning them outright from negotiating. And so I know that there was an effort there, and obviously it didn't work out. It was interesting to me that they decided to say, "Hey, we're just going to go all in on on the worst one."
Yeah, they brought up the compromise a couple times. Actually, they it changed 3 different times. We kind of agreed we'd go neutral on one of their compromises. We thought we had it in effect for one day. Then they came back and they completely changed it. And so, like, the one thing they wanted to stick with is you'd have to have 50% of all people who were eligible to vote. 50% plus one of the vote on that. And originally they agreed. They're like, yeah, it's ridiculous. We'll
Because
go.
it wasn't just, yeah, like Jerry said, I just want to point out, like it was of people eligible to vote, not just people who voted. So if you didn't
Well,
vote, it
Yeah,
was a vote against being recognized as the union.
and that bill was still going to ban like union stewards and people from be able to represent people on the clock. So we
Hmm.
try to explain that to them. Like, well, they were the cities and that we represent. They actually want us there. This is something they want. This is something they've negotiated. Like our local, we've been in effect since 1977. And this is something that they want. This is something that they want these representatives to go in there and be able to be with those employees. But it was still going to ban that, and it just kind of kept changing. And we feel that with those compromises, they didn't actually want the compromise. And at the end, one of the things that they were saying, they're like, well, we were still receiving emails against this bill. So you
yeah,
guys obviously can't control your membership. And so it got down to it was ridiculous.
yeah,
And they
it's really,
never put any of the compromise bills like actually on the floor. We were only ever dealing with the first sub. So like they say that we like reneged and we were impossible to like negotiate. We were negotiating in bad faith, and we were like, you never actually put the compromise on the floor. So
and so you guys got stuck with this now. And so how has it? I don't know where you guys are in contracts, right? Like, there's been no. It doesn't dissolve current existing collective bargaining agreements, or how does it work?
No, any contract that's in effect would still be in effect until it expires.
Okay. But within a few years, all these people are all of a sudden not going to have. So are people they're just going to like individual uh, pay rating ranges again? Like how would that? It's so many people who work for the government. How would that even work?
That's
Yeah, that's what
literally
part
what
of
they said.
yeah, that's part of this ridiculous that they're trying to tell us. They're like, now each individual is going to be able to negotiate separately.
And
We're like,
that'll be better.
yeah,
And
Yeah,
we're
it never
like,
works.
yeah,
yeah.
It would be.
And they say too, like they said that teachers would feel like they had to join the union, and we were like, well, that's just not true because Utah's a right to work state.
Right,
Like if they don't want to join the union, they cannot be forced to join the union. If they don't like the direction the union's going, they should probably get more involved because it's
right.
a democratic organization and
Yeah,
change the direction of it instead
yeah,
of blowing it up.
and with the right to work stuff, they have to pay a fee because they are being represented and negotiated for, but they're not paying union dues. It's like going to any
They don't
political.
pay a fee either in public
Oh,
employees
really?
because of Janice v.
Oh,
me.
right. That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't have to. They can do it voluntarily.
And they recognize it too. Like we've
Yeah,
talked to people who were like, why would I join? I get
right.
the benefits. And we're like, ah.
America in I guess in a nutshell right there.
Yeah.
And so they passed this thing, and you guys immediately sort of launched into doing this ballot initiative. I know it was sort of like the threat, hey, if you do that, we're gonna go put this on. And so you had to get organized really quickly, though. I know you intended on doing it, but it must have been just like given the amount of time you have and the number of signatures you need to get. And Utah's, I've been there a few times. There's Salt Lake City, there's some big towns, but it's not like there's a lot of central hubs in a lot of districts, I imagine. So talk about putting it together on such a short notice.
Jerry, what do you think?
it's actually been really inspiring.
Yeah.
It's been unbelievable how much how this has kind of like brought the labor movement together in Utah, and it's been neat to see. I think that's something they didn't expect. I think they kind of thought we were just going to roll over and take it, and this has really brought the labor movement together. It brought organizations that in the past had a little beef with each other and didn't get along that great, and it's brought everyone together, and it's been amazing to see how organized this thing is going, and the number of signatures that are coming in because of that.
And I'll say too, we've even gotten the private sector unions involved. Like they're volunteering, collecting signatures.
Hmm.
They were up at the Capitol with us, and there were legislators that were like, "Why are you here? This doesn't affect you." And we were like, "Okay, so you've never heard of solidarity?"
Right. Yeah, and, it's one of those things where they come after one union first, right? One type, and then they're going to go after a second one. It's not like they just stop there.
Yeah, they'll just keep their hands off for sure.
I mean, it's interesting because we're seeing federally now, right? The attack on collective bargaining agreements. So you guys are, I'm sure it's a big deal in Utah, but all of a sudden, what you guys are doing or what you're trying to combat is now like a national thing. And so I don't know if that's made any difference to you at all in terms of people's awareness or people realizing the urgency of it.
I don't think people, the people I've talked to while I'm gathering signatures mostly know everybody knows a teacher or knows someone who knows a teacher. So they know what's going on and they're actually really eager to sign and like excited about it, which is awesome. But the people who are more plugged into like political conversations are definitely like, okay, so this whole thing is going to play out in Utah. And
Yeah.
that's why we're like, this is high stakes. This is a big deal.
I know that you got a lot of volunteers even before the thing launched, right? Like kind of right away, there was a lot of people signing up for it. So talk about like how that's worked because you've had there's a lot of public sector employees, but you've had to get people everywhere, to sign in every district. And so talk about how that's worked, just the number of people who've come out of the woodwork. Have there been a lot of people who are just interested in helping, and how you kind of gone about it?
Yeah. So we do have a coalition between a couple different unions, and we're really lucky to just have brilliant people involved. And so they knew how we wanted to like structure this with like a steering committee for the effort. And so people had had some experience with other ballot initiatives in Utah. And so we were able to be pretty well organized and set up like a website and got some, comms out there, some media attention. And yeah, we had like 1,500 people sign up, just people, probably public employees or people who knew public employees um, before we even launched gathering signatures.
Oh, that's a lot of people. And so how many people have been working and volunteering now?
I honestly don't know. I imagine it just keeps growing. If you go to our website, protectutahworkers.com, there's like a map view of places you can go for signature like events, and there's dozens just spread out all over the state. And it's really cool to see like people are just hosting them in their own neighborhoods. Like
Oh,
come by and sign from this time to this time, or it's like unions, we volunteer to go to like specific parks for a certain amount of time or something like that.
What's interesting to me is they did this in Wisconsin, right, a number of years ago,
Mhm.
and that was catastrophic in a lot of ways for unions. They exempted, and this is actually why it got ruled unconstitutional at the moment. Firefighters, I think, corrections officers, possibly police officers, and sort of those kind of public safety, I guess, officers and employees. And I think that was their way to keep it conservative. But that's not the case here, right? It was cops, firefighters, everyone has been had their collective bargaining taken away.
Yeah, they went after all public workers. So they went after everyone this time.
Were you
And yeah,
surprised?
last year they had tried to like cut out. They tried to do like dues deduction and mess with other union busting tactics,
Mm.
but they had exempted police and fire, and we were just baffled. And this time we kind of expected that, and we were kind of
Yeah,
waiting to see if like side deals got offered, but they never did, which is good for our solidarity. I mean, and last year too, the firefighters were with us. They were like, "We don't want your carve out."
yeah, yeah. It's what? Why do you think they just decided, screw it, we're gonna do everybody this time?
We kind of think they might have learned from the Wisconsin thing, that they might have seen that, okay, this is an avenue that they could use to bring a lawsuit. So we'll just go after all public workers this time.
Interesting. And so you've had firefighters and the police also have been very involved in trying to stop this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're both jumped on board, and everyone's going for it.
It's a strange, well, not strange, but unconventional, I guess, coalition to have like police unions and teachers and everyone else, kind of doing that as well together.
Yeah, I think it, like Jerry said, it's been good for our solidarity because everybody, we're all affected the same, and we all just want a seat at the table. Like, and it's not, there are public. Jerry could go on and on about this, and I love it when he does. But just,
It's,
it's not just police and fire that handle safety issues in our community. Like youth workers, sanitation workers that work for the county and the city. Like those people have a huge safety concerns in their job and for the broader public. But yeah, we are so happy that like police and fire are joining on with this.
yeah,
It
I mean,
is strange to have the FOP like make a speech.
right, yeah, it's not just normally, yeah, it's definitely not conventional, but it's good. It helps with solidarity. And so, tell me, so you mentioned, you bring up a good point. You bring up sanitation. There's so many jobs that are impacted by this, and so I'm curious if you could just kind of run down. You have to go through every single job description, but the folks who are impacted, because to give people an understanding of just the number of people who are having their rights taken away.
Yeah, so we have, like, just within Salt Lake City, we have the Salt Lake City International Airport, and all the maintenance and operation people that work there. They're all covered by our contract. We have water treatment centers, multiple water treatment centers, multiple freshwater treatment centers. We have a unbelievably large streets division. We have uh, public utilities. Our public utilities crosses like multiple areas. So we bring water out of like the canyons. We out of like where a lot of our ski resorts and stuff are. That's all. That's where we're getting a lot of our water from. So it covers a huge, massive area, and that's what they don't realize. On like they keep when they were trying to bring this bill up, they didn't want that out there. They didn't want the fact that this was affecting all these public workers, and so they kept trying to narrowly push it to teachers, and so we kept pushing back, and we'd have people show up like in their workwear, right, with their orange vest on to kind of show like, okay, this is what this is taking out these guys that work in these things like our sewer guys, man. They do these jobs that people won't even believe that people do for a living, where they're waiting in waiters in these lift stations in raw sewage to stop somebody's house from backing up with sewage, and then they're
Jeez.
come out and say that this guy that's doing that for you doesn't need collective bargaining to help protect him and to help protect his rights. And like one of the things our collective bargaining's done is put us on the table of these safety and steering committees, and without fear of retaliation. And the point we kept trying to point out to him was that the municipalities and even like the state workers in Utah who aren't represented by a union, they're coming to us weekly with fears of different safety concerns that they have, that they want us to go advocate for them because the fear they have of being retaliated against if they bring that stuff up. And that's something within Salt Lake City that you had a voice on your job. And that's something we kept trying to explain to these politicians, and you'd get that out to them. You start explaining it to them, and then uh, you'd almost get them on your side. Then they'd go talk to somebody from Americans for Prosperity, and they come back and say, "No, it doesn't affect you. That doesn't do that for you." You're like,
Right.
"Man, this job for years. I can show you how it affects my everyday life."
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, like they go after teachers, and it's an interesting thing too because it's only I think since COVID that they've been comfortable going after teachers in a lot of ways because people were backing teachers unions, and I think still probably do. I don't know exactly how popular it is there, but they made teachers it seems sort of a perilous gamble to go after teachers even still.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a really I don't even know if I want to say their name and give them any airtime, but there is a parents' rights group in Utah that's really popular with a lot of people. But like I said, people know about this because they know public school teachers or they know school employees, and you know I think that personal connection is really, and there are a lot of kids in Utah. So, and there are a
Yeah,
lot of overcrowded classrooms. Like, so people know how bad it is for the teachers. But like Jerry said, we just kept pushing it back to like, you're not just coming after teachers.
right,
And if you were just coming after teachers, like we would have stood with them too, because we're all big, public employees
right.
doing really difficult jobs. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's wild to me that they, have gone after after it's generally, and again, I can't speak to Utah, but like, there's this element, this belief, I guess, that bureaucrats are, you're not bureaucrats, but this idea of people who work for the government are just these liberals in disguise, and I think that's what we've discovered is very much not the case nationally. I'm sure in Utah it's not the case where people who are members of their union aren't necessarily like super pro union or necessarily like running out to campaign for Kamala Harris, and now all of a sudden they've been
right.
activated because their rights and their contracts and their ability to make a living are under fire.
Yeah, we definitely have conservative union members, and we don't think union issues like should be partisan. Like it's a working class
Mhm.
versus billionaire, you know what I mean, the owning class, and
Right.
that crosses partisan divides, which we're really lucky to see that in Utah, because we will send our conservative members out to talk to conservatives
Mm.
about why this matters to them
Yeah.
as working class people, and that's really effective, and we take it away from being a partisan issue. And the legislature did try really hard to make it a partisan issue. They grilled Jerry, and it was so good during a committee hearing about how the union makes political campaign donations to candidates. And Jerry was like, not with dues, 0% with dues. It comes out of a PAC, same as we have it with, unions are playing by the rules every other corporation is with
Mm.
donating through PACs. So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
keep trying to say it's political, that, we're taking their union dues and pushing a liberal agenda. And we're like,
Yeah.
no.
And if that were the case, they could try and regulate that and not just being able to negotiate the contract. They're
Yeah.
making it used for something that has nothing to do with even political donations.
Yeah. I
Um,
seriously would like encourage everybody to go watch that committee hearing, because it was just like such a good mic drop. Because they were like,
yeah,
well, how much of your union dues? How much?
0.
Zero.
We'll post if you send it to me. We can post a link for sure.
Yeah, I will.
And so you have 9 days left, and I know you guys are doing well. I saw some news stories about it, and we've been in touch. But to give me the status report, the about what's going on and how you're feeling about it and what's left to do.
Jerry, do you have anything you want to
You're
point
probably
out?
more on update on this one than me. It's going. The numbers. It's kind of like we definitely we can't let down. We know that. So, but it's moving in a positive direction. I guess I don't really know how to phrase it, because sometimes I'm very optimistic, and then the next time I'm like I realize there is only 8 or so days left, and it's like it almost like it wakes you up at night. You're thinking, man, now we're gonna, are we gonna get there? And we know that they're gonna dump a bunch of money to try to get people to remove their signatures once this is over. We have to get that buffer in there too. So I think we're going to have the numbers for sure, but it's just, is our buffer going to be big enough in order to take off the people that remove their signatures?
Yeah, that to me is wild. Obviously, like there people challenge signatures. I know that, and obviously, like they have to affirm signatures anywhere, right, to make sure they're valid, valid voters or residents. But the 45 days to then like take the list and then go after, I don't. Is that a new thing? Because I haven't heard that like elsewhere. At least that long period.
This is my first referendum experience, so I'm not sure if that's like a new thing in Utah, but Yeah, it's what if you saw like the trainings we had to do with our volunteers, like they're throwing out signatures if you go outside of the box, and the boxes are tiny.
Yeah.
Like, and so people who write too big, like we have to cross them out, and they have to write on the very next line. They can't go later in the packet. It has to be on the very next line. You can't abbreviate Salt Lake City or West Valley City. Like there's crazy, it's so intense.
And
Black or blue ink. You cannot mess with the packets. We had to staple the first couple thousand packets by hand because the print shops we wanted to use don't bind things the way that is required by the state. So they had to like adjust their printers to be able to do it. So we had a stapling party like the first few days of this campaign, and it's insane. The hurdles are huge. But we've put a really big emphasis on good training, and we're feeling confident.
yeah, they make you have to like, present them with the law, let them read the law, and then after they go through all the rigmarole of getting all their signatures in the little tiny boxes, and then you have to give them a receipt afterwards that tells them how they can remove their signature if they want.
Oh,
So the whole thing is they stack it against you every way they can.
yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's only so many states have ballot referendums, but they're getting harder and harder to even use. A lot of places,
Mhm.
Florida is really tightening it up. Like Oklahoma and other places, South Dakota, are really just making it so hard to use, and that you're able to even get on a ballot is it's not the victory you're looking for. You obviously want to pass it, but to even get there is just like a kind of a humongous accomplishment of organizing.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot with going on with ballot initiatives in Utah right now. If anybody wants to go look up the Better Boundaries issue, which was about independent redistricting, it's
Mm.
like going through the court system right now. Because the legislature, like this, we have an active, like civically active population. Like we pass ballot initiatives quite often, but then the legislature just tears them to shreds and changes the whole thing completely. So this is very interesting as a referendum, but I think the last time we had a statewide referendum was on school vouchers, and it was defeated pretty like
Yeah,
handedly. So we're feeling good on these issues. I mean, if there hadn't been such huge outcry during the session against
yeah,
this, it might be a different story. But they passed this bill knowing like thousands of people were against it, and other people who didn't say anything about it don't care. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah, we
So
had legislators that had been there for 27 years, and they told us it was the most emails and communications he's ever received on any law.
I
So
saw photos of people like this huge numbers of people on the Capitol steps within the building. Just like it was a huge, whether they're union members or not, just like a huge outpouring on the middle of the day, right?
yep,
For hearings and stuff.
yeah,
yep.
Um, and I want to ask about the challenging. What can you do when they start challenging people? Like, what do you or can you reach out to people and be like, hey, just a heads up to make sure you're not uh pulling back? Like, you just have to be silent for 45 days.
I think we might do some sort of. There is a place to donate if anybody is
Oh yeah,
interested
that's
on
gonna
our website.
follow up. Yeah.
But I think we will try to run some, campaigns explaining like what signing meant, and just that it's okay. You're okay with it going on the ballot for the public to vote on. Not that you feel any which way about the
Right.
law. You can do that later through your vote. I think we'll try to run some campaigns like that. I've been telling people when I give them their receipt that somebody might try and call them, and they can tell them where to stick it.
Yeah, that's. I mean, yeah, I would be. It's so infuriating to give them 45 longer than you have to collect the names.
And they get our 30 days as well. Like they're running decline to sign campaigns right now on
Right.
conservative radio, and
Are
yeah.
they like harassing petition
Oh my
gatherers?
God.
yeah.
Someone got their packets stolen, like
We, we,
ripped out of their hand.
Oh my
yeah,
God.
a packet stolen from somebody. We have
Yeah.
they're coming around with their videos and videoing you and
Yeah.
trying to say something that goes against the rules. It's crazy how the
I guess
opposite.
somebody got like stalked by someone driving a Tesla. Sorry, I didn't. It happened, but like they were just canvassing their neighborhood, and somebody was following them.
The
Like,
amount of money they have too, it's bottomless to pay people to do this stuff.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we were actually at a county rec center or outside. It was a county rec center attached to a park. We were on this park next to this county rec center, and the county rec center was getting phone calls saying they were mad because they were letting them do a liberal protest. They called it out in the parking lot. So I told them that we had to leave. It's nuts.
That's got to be so frustrating that this. I mean, it's frustrating nationally, right? Everywhere you go. I live in New York City, and live with the New York Post, which is and talk radio, which is toxic. But what you're up against is like just the sheer dominance, I guess, of the airwaves and everything else. Just all the misinformation.
Yeah.
Um,
And we witnessed that a little bit too. I'll say the local media was really invested in doing a good job on this story. I got a little frustrated because the compromise really like grinds my gears because they was just like getting a little bit lost in translation how that all came about. And I think it was a manufactured breakdown by the legislature in negotiations. And I don't know that the media wants to call it that. And I
right.
don't know that we want to like start all those fires either, but I will say they are really dedicated to doing a good job, and we've been really lucky.
So you have 8 or 9 days, and then they get their 45 days, and so you should know probably by June, right? I guess May or June or whatever. That whether or not you're going to make the ballot. I guess they imagine. I imagine they also try and challenge as many signatures as they can.
Yeah, I don't really know what their like process is or how it will work. I've just been telling people someone might call you
Yeah.
because yeah, I'm not sure how they go about doing their part.
So one thing people asked is like you had to be Utah, you person living in Utah to vote to sign this, but people can like you mentioned like donate or help. So what can people do, and what are the websites they go to?
So yeah, people can donate. We have a PIC account set up for this. Our website is protectutahworkers.com. I think there's just a link to donate. And then as far as like actions, I think just helping us spread the word and combat misinformation, especially about like taxpayer dollars being used for union dues. Like that's just not how it works. So just having conversations and helping us spread the word.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
and, you have to be a Utah registered Utah voter in order to sign it, but you don't have to be a registered Utah voter to come help gather signatures. And so,
Yeah.
if in the next 8 days, if somebody's off for spring break or something, and they want to come come to a red state and help get in a big fight, get in the fight. Let's come join us, man. We use all the help we can get.
yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
obviously it's a conservative red state, and like to be able to contribute to not only this initiative, which is really important, but this sort of like congealing of a solidarity, right? Like not that you guys didn't have that before, but this is certainly like a next level, I imagine, of like a movement that only has so many people in it because of the way the state's set up and right to work and all that. But it's now like I think Jerry said this earlier, sort of backfired in a way, and you can sort of contribute to this this growing of a kind of working class movement that they did not expect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we will let you go to go collect signatures. I know you got probably do that on a Sunday. And yeah, so protectutahworkers.com is the website. People should go donate. We'll put it in the newsletter when we send this out so we get a lot of people reading and hopefully donating and making a difference. And thanks for taking the time to do this.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
you so much.
Absolutely.
Bye bye.